To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation.
Vielleicht nur als Imposant.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chalna.
And I'm Jyotsna Kaman. On the show today, President Donald Trump says he will push to get some Ukrainian territory back during his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Friday. Speaking at the White House, Trump said Russia has occupied prime territory in Ukraine and he will try to get some back. The two leaders are set to meet in Alaska, but can one conversation shift the course of the war? We will be discussing that on the show today.
Also on World DNA, in the US, Trump says he is deploying the National Guard to Washington, D.C. and taking control of the city's police force, citing rising crime and homelessness, which has received a major amount of backlash. He declared a public safety emergency and sent 800 National Guard troops to reinforce federal officers already on the ground. We'll track those developments for you closely as well. Let's start with the headlines.
Gunman opens fire outside a Target store in Texas capital, killing at least 3 people before stealing 2 cars during a getaway that ended with his arrest. Police say suspect is a man in his 30s with mental health history.
Tremendous tariffs.
Donald Trump says he has ordered a 90-day tariff truce to delay the reimposition of higher levies on Chinese goods, hours before a suspension between the two economies was set to expire.
At the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be. Because that's what I do. I make deals. Vladimir, thank you very much.
Donald Trump describes his upcoming summit with Vladimir Putin as a feel-out meeting to gauge his ideas for ending the war in Ukraine. And he will know within the first 2 minutes of his meeting whether a deal can be made.
We're declaring public safety emergency in the District of Columbia, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's fantastic, is taking command of the Metropolitan Police Department as of this moment.
Protests erupt after Trump declares a public safety emergency for Washington, D.C., deploying military and federal law enforcement to curb violent crime in the city.
Gaza hospital says at least 15 Palestinians, most of them children, killed in 2 separate Israeli strikes overnight in the city. One strike killed 12 people in the Zayton neighborhood.
US State Department designates Balochistan Liberation Army and its armed wing Majid Brigade as foreign terrorist organizations. BLA claims to fight for the liberation of Balochistan from Pakistan.
Colombian presidential candidate Miguel Uribe dies 2 months after being shot in the head and leg on June 7th at a rally in capital Bogota by a suspected 15-year-old hitman.
Heavy rains lash several parts of Delhi and NCR, triggering waterlogging in many areas after the India Meteorological Department predicted thunderstorms with rain.
Gold prices slipped after President Trump declared bullion imports would not be subject to U.S. tariffs, but markets await official confirmation to ease lingering uncertainty. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump, in a press conference on Monday, described his upcoming meet with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin as a feel-out meeting.
And this is to essentially gauge Putin's ideas for ending the war in Ukraine. Now, Trump has invited Putin to Alaska on Friday, that is the 15th of this month, which will mark the first face-to-face meeting between Trump and Putin since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. At the press conference recently, the US president said that he would press his Russian counterpart to end the war.
So I'm going in to speak to Vladimir Putin, and I'm going to be telling him, you got to end this war, you got to end it.
Trump also said he was a little bothered by his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky's stance and insisted that both Ukraine and Russia would have to give up territory to each other as part of a potential peace agreement, adding that his meeting with Putin would test waters for such a deal.
I'm going to meet with him. We're going to see what the parameters are. I'm then going to call up President Zelensky and the European leaders right after the meeting, yeah. And I'm going to tell them what kind of a deal. I'm not going to make a deal. It's not up to me to make a deal.
Trump said he would know within minutes if there would be a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia when he meets Putin later in the week.
At the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made. Because that's what I do. I make deals.
Now, he also revealed plans to call Zelensky and other European leaders immediately after the talks, fearing that Putin will team up with Trump to force unacceptable compromises. European leaders plan to speak separately on Wednesday. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has invited the French, British, and other European leaders and the EU and NATO chiefs for a virtual talks. Now, Merz's office said that the video conference in various rounds of talks would discuss further options to exert pressure on Russia in preparation of possible peace negotiations and related issues of territorial claims and security.
EU foreign ministers met in Brussels on Monday with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha and also examined imposing a 19th package of sanctions on Russia since the invasion. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas said until Russia agrees to a full and unconditional ceasefire, concessions should not be even discussed.
The urgent need for
Zelensky warned against giving in to Putin's demands, highlighting how Russia refuses to stop the killings and therefore must not receive any rewards or benefits. And well, to discuss more, we are now being joined live by Professor James A. Russell. He is an associate professor in the Department of National Security Affairs at the Naval Postgraduate School. Thank you so much and appreciate you having me.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's begin. And now Donald Trump has described his upcoming summit with Vladimir Putin as a feel-out meeting. Of course, what we were expecting was probably a deal. What are you getting from his statements coming in, saying he might get a deal? It's not up to him to get a deal, but he might try to get a deal, especially even on topics of territory. What do you make of these statements?
Well, like much of what happens in the Trump administration, with President Trump, we are faced with contradictory, confusing, and sclerotic messaging. And so we are left sort of in a confused state as to what is going on. And I would say that at the outset of this endeavor of the summit is that any discussions between the United States and Russia are a good thing. The United States has to have diplomatic exchanges with the Russians on a whole range of important global issues. But related to this business of the war in Ukraine, the impression you have is of poor prior planning, slipshod, sort of preparations, and a kind of an amateur hour, almost television show-like approach to the whole enterprise of trying to seek a ceasefire. So on the one hand, it's a great thing that the American president is involved in trying to end this war, which by some estimates has led to over 1 million casualties involving both sides. But then on the other hand, you have absolutely no confidence that he has the sort of wherewithal and the appropriate preparations to fashion some kind of agreement. The Russians have been very clear all along about what their objectives are in the Ukraine war. They seek a neutral Ukraine. They do not want a pro-Western Ukraine. They do not want pro-Western troops in Ukraine. They seek a demilitarized Ukraine. And that's what the Russians are fighting for, and they are winning slowly.
Yeah, just allow me to come in there, because that's essentially what I also wanted to get your thoughts on. We've seen Trump make those comments every week. It's a different comment, and there is, it leaves a lot of people more confused than giving anyone clarity at this point. But from the Russian side, what do you feel Putin is coming into this summit with? Because if we've understood anything about the Russians so far, their points have remained exactly where they were all those years ago. This is what they want, but Trump is suggesting concessions from the Russian side.
Well, I would. All we can do is hope that he's right, that Putin is going to show up with concessions. But frankly, I just don't see it. But I stand to be corrected. I hope that Putin does in fact show up prepared to show flexibility to get some kind of ceasefire and then a peace agreement in place. But I guess I'm skeptical about this. And President Trump himself has been all over the map in terms of the various positions he's taken vis-a-vis the Europeans, vis-a-vis the Ukrainians. It's not clear to me, for example, how you can have any kind of negotiation or serious discussion on a ceasefire or peace agreement in Ukraine without the participation of the Ukrainians and the Europeans.
Yeah, and Europeans are really batting for that Kiev needs to be included in those discussions. And just to add to that confusion, there was also a statement which came in from the US president that he's going to Russia to meet Putin. That has only been considered a little more confusing at this point. If that is true or that's a strategic move, we'll need to just wait and see how that one pans out. That one's Professor James Russell joining us on World DNA. Pleasure speaking with you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And life has been reduced to daily struggle for survival in Gaza. We're speaking about the updates in West Asia. The Israeli troops who have been going after desperate Gaza aid seekers for months now have targeted the messengers this time as well.
Well, as many as 6 journalists have been killed in a deadly Israeli strike in Gaza. Now, there are images of Gazans mourning of the deaths of these journalists. Qatari news channel Al Jazeera says that its staff were killed in the Israeli strike on their tent outside the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City on Sunday, including prominent reporter Anas Al-Sharif, who extensively covered the war from inside Gaza.
Now, when it comes to the Israelis, they have a different version of it. The Israeli military said that it targeted Sharif, whom it has repeatedly labeled as a terrorist affiliated with Hamas, saying that he posed as a journalist. That's what the Israelis claim. Now, and this is an allegation that has been denied. At least 242 journalists have been killed in Gaza since October 7th, 2023.
This confirms that journalists in this war have become a legitimate target, and that journalists and everyone who tries to convey and deliver the message and the truth is a legitimate target for Israel, and that killing them is a duty to obscure the word and attempt to hide the truth.
What happened to these journalists is a complex Israeli crime against the journalistic family, a crime against humanity, a crime against freedom, a crime against journalism. These young men and these journalists were only killed, tortured, burned, arrested, or wounded because they chose to report the suffering of their people, women, elderly, and children. They reported the massacres, displacement, and famine in the Gaza Strip.
Students in West Bank's Birzeit University marched and protested the killing of journalists. They carried pictures of the slain journalists, marched and chanted again against their killing.
Italy, a key Western ally of Israel, has called out Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's government, saying that it has lost its reason and humanity over Gaza. The Italian government has signaled an openness to potential sanctions. Similarly, Norway's sovereign wealth fund, the largest in the world, has dropped investments in 11 Israeli companies.
The UN Human Rights Agency has condemned Israel's targeted killing of journalists as a grave breach of international humanitarian law. The killings come at a time as Netanyahu defended his plan to take control of Gaza City and target the remaining Hamas strongholds. He called it the best way to end the war, despite growing calls to stop the fighting.
The new Israeli operation in Gaza will aim to dismantle the 2 remaining Hamas strongholds in Gaza City and the central camps, while establishing secure corridors and safe zones to allow civilians to leave the area. According to the Palestinian health authorities, Israel's offensive has killed more than 61,000 Palestinians in the last 2 years of war.
The U.S. President Donald Trump has announced public safety emergency by deploying military and federal law enforcement to curb violent crimes in Washington.
And he's seeking to cement his claim to be a law and order president with a crackdown that he said could be expanded to other major U.S. cities as well.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C.
President Trump is sending 800 National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. He is also placing the city's police under federal control, declaring it's time to, in his words, take our capital back. Now, this comes as Washington, D.C. faces allegations from Republican politicians that it is overrun by crime, plagued by homelessness, and financially mismanaged.
D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser criticized Trump's action, noting the city had achieved its lowest violent crime rate in 30 years. She emphasized that crime had declined not only from its post-pandemic peak in 2023, but also compared to pre-pandemic levels in 2019.
My message to residents is this. We know that access to our democracy is tenuous. That is why you have heard me and many Washingtonians before me advocate for full statehood for the District of Columbia. We are American citizens. Our families go to war. We pay taxes and we uphold the responsibilities of citizenship. And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised.
Now, in downtown Washington, D.C., several dozen protesters rallied against President Trump's decision to place the city's police under federal control, chanting, "The people united will never be defeated." Demonstrators accused the president of undermining the city's autonomy.
And I want to be clear, this is not about crime. This is about what Trump is trying to do to D.C. in order to take over D.C. and silence us. This is the story of a ruler who's trying to oppress a people and who's causing real harm to real communities in the process.
It's installing a fascist America and a fascist takeover of D.C. It is time to unite, not to fight each other the way they want us to do. And it is time to get people into the streets.
Democrats, including House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, denounced the move as advancing the personal and political agenda of a wannabe king, quote unquote. Former Obama official Richard Stengel warned that autocrats have long used false pretenses to take control of local police as a step forward and a step towards national power. Now, Trump cast his action as a warning to other Democratic-run cities, naming Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, Baltimore, and Oakland as having very bad crime problems.
Now, federal law allows Trump to control Washington's police for 30 days, while a longer period would require authorization from Congress, which Democrats would likely block.
And there is more on this from our correspondent Susan Tehrani, who sends us this report from New York.
President Trump announced that he's federalizing the DC Police Department and deploying National Guard to Washington, D.C. as part of a crime-fighting push. In a letter to Congress, he cited emergency conditions requiring the Metropolitan Police for federal purposes, protecting government buildings, monuments, and ensuring order in the Capitol. A 1973 law allows presidents to take control of D.C. police for up to 48 hours without Congress and up to 30 days with it. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser called the move unsettling, but it seems that she will be cooperating, while Representative Jamie Raskin labeled it a textbook authoritarian maneuver, vowing to introduce legislation to reverse it. The order comes amid heightened federal law enforcement presence at a number of high-profile crime incidents and renewed Republican interest in rolling back D.C.'s home rule. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
And once hailed as a crown jewel of American air power, the F-35 stealth fighter now faces a buyer's revolt.
Now, of course, this is from Canada to Switzerland. Once eager customers are slamming the brakes, tariffs, ballooning costs, and political backlash are turning to the jet into Washington's loneliest weapon. Here's a report for more.
The F-35 Lightning II is the very definition of cutting-edge warfare. It's stealthy, lethal, and packed with sensors that can track an enemy before they even know they're being hunted. About 20 countries operate it, and it was once the most sought after in global defense shopping. But today, the jet's toughest battle isn't in the skies, it's on the geopolitical matrix. After Spain, now neutral Switzerland is pushing back against buying the American warplane. Earlier, NATO allies Portugal and Canada also voiced hesitation, despite being part of the F-35's political and industrial ecosystem. With over 500 jets already flying combat missions and orders for hundreds more, it was long positioned as the de facto NATO gold standard. Now, Switzerland, after lengthy deliberations, is actively reconsidering its purchase of the F-35s. The reason? A staggering 39% tariff imposed by the US, a punitive financial strike that has sent shockwaves through its political establishment. The decision exposes a new brutal reality for America's allies. The jet is no longer just a weapon, but a pawn in a larger, volatile trade war. There's also the cost factor. Its costs run up to $100 million per unit, depending on the variant. This follows similar cold feet from NATO allies Portugal and Canada, who have also expressed deep misgivings about committing to the F-35 program. The message is clear. For all its unparalleled might in the sky, the F-35's Achilles heel is not its technology, but the unpredictable politics of its manufacturer, making a once unquestionable acquisition a political and economic liability under President Donald Trump. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
All right, viewers, this is we're going to be stepping into a short break, but this is World DNA. We will be back after this short break. Come right back.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Vielleicht nur als 5%.
Welcome back. You're watching World DNA with me, Joseph Kamai, and my colleague Shivan Chan. Now let's begin with the headlines.
Gunman opens fire outside a Target store in Texas, killing at least 3 people before stealing 2 cars during a getaway that ended with his arrest. Police say the suspect is a man in his 30s with mental health history.
Donald Trump says he has ordered a 90-day tariff truce to delay reimposition of higher levies on Chinese goods hours before a suspension between the two economies was set to expire.
At the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be. Because that's what I do. I make deals. Vladimir, thank you very much.
Trump describes his upcoming summit with Putin as a feel-out meeting to gauge Putin's ideas for ending the war in Ukraine. Says he'll know within the first 2 minutes of his meeting.
We're declaring public safety emergency in the District of Columbia, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's fantastic, is taking command of the Metropolitan Police Department as of this moment.
Protests erupt after Donald Trump declares a public safety emergency for Washington, D.C., deploying military and federal law enforcement to curb violent crime in the city.
Organizations should not be fighting each other.
Gaza hospital says at least 15 Palestinians, most of them children, killed in 2 separate Israeli strikes overnight in the city. One strike killed 12 people in the Zaytun neighborhood.
The U.S. State Department designates Balochistan Liberation Army and its armed wing, Majid Brigade, as foreign terrorist organizations. BLA claims to fight for the liberation of Balochistan from Pakistan.
Colombian presidential candidate Miguel Uribe dies 2 months after being shot in the head and leg on the 7th of June at a rally in capital Bogota by a suspected 15-year-old hitman.
Heavy rains slashed several parts of Delhi and NCR, triggering waterlogging in many areas after India Meteorological Department predicted thunderstorm and rain.
Gold prices slipped after Trump declared bullion imports would not be subject to US tariffs, but markets await official confirmation to ease lingering uncertainty.
Cristiano Ronaldo and longtime partner Georgina Rodriguez are officially engaged after 8 years of dating. The 40-year-old proposed to Rodriguez with a diamond ring.
The United States has formally designated the Balochistan Liberation Army and its armed wing, the Majid Brigade, as a foreign terrorist organization.
The State Department says the Majid Brigade is now listed as an official alias of the BLA, which was first labeled a global terrorist group in 2019.
The BLA, which operates mostly in the southwest Pakistani province of Balochistan, has long fought for an independent state. Since 2019, the group has claimed multiple deadly attacks. In 2024, the BLA said that it carried out suicide bombings near Karachi Airport and the Gwadar Port Authority complex.
In 2025, the group claimed responsibility for the hijacking of the Jafar Express train from Quetta to Peshawar, killing 31 civilians and security personnel and holding over 300 passengers hostage.
The moves from US State Department come a day after Pakistan's Army Chief Asim Munir made his second visit to US in less than 3 months. Asim Munir also met with key army officials. During his first visit, Washington and Islamabad agreed to explore oil in Pakistan.
The designation brings 4 main consequences. On financial front, US banks cannot deal with the group and any assets in US are frozen. Members and supporters can be denied entry into the United States. Providing material support is a federal crime and can invite criminal penalties.
The State Department says the designation is aimed at cutting off support and resources for the group. Officials say the listing reinforces the Trump administration's commitment to combating terrorism worldwide.
And India's national capital woke up to heavy rain, a slight relief from the unbearable humidity that Monday brought.
Delhi, Noida, Ghaziabad and the entire NCR. They're experiencing relentless heavy rainfall since Monday night, resulting in waterlogging across multiple areas. In such a situation, the commuters are likely to witness traffic jams and slow vehicular movement in the morning today. Now, the India Meteorological Department, the IMD, forecasted light rain and thunder showers in Delhi for today, with temperatures ranging from 24 to 35 degrees Celsius.
A similar heavy downpour on August 9th had brought Delhi to a grinding halt. The intense rain, which started just after midnight on Friday, caused widespread waterlogging, uprooted trees and resulted in tragic wall collapse in Harinagar that claimed 8 lives.
The severe weather also disrupted air travel, with over 100 flights delayed. Although the India Meteorological Department had predicted moderate rainfall on Sunday, the monsoons had actually slowed down after the August 9th deluge.
And again, the Weather Department says that Delhi may see light rainfall until August 15th, with a partly cloudy sky and a chance of scattered showers or thunderstorms throughout the week. Meanwhile, according to the Central Pollution Control Board, Delhi's air quality remained in the satisfactory category on Monday, with an air quality index of 97.
Tensions are again flaring up in the South China Sea. Manila claims a Chinese Navy vessel collided with a Chinese warship.
Now, this was while chasing a Philippines patrol boat in the South China Sea. In a dramatic footage released by the Philippine Coast Guard, a China Coast Guard ship and a much larger vessel bearing the number 164 on its hull can be seen colliding with a loud crash. The vessels collided as they were shadowing a Filipino patrol boat. The Philippine Coast Guard claims the Chinese Coast Guard ships chased and staged dangerous blocking maneuvers against the Philippine fishing vessels near the contested Scarborough Shoal.
While we were being chased by the Chinese Coast Guard 3104, ay nagkaroon ng insidente ang pagitan ng China Coast Guard at ng PLA Navy warship 164. Sila mismo ang nagbanggaan at dahil dito na damage yung unahang parte ng barko ng China Coast Guard. And on our part, we even extended our intention to support man overboard and even provide medical attention.
There has been no immediate comment from the Chinese side. This is the latest flare-up of long-simmering territorial disputes in the busy waterway, a key global trade route where overlapping claims between China and the Philippines have escalated in recent years.
Now, both China and the Philippines claim Scarborough Shoal and other outcroppings in the South China Sea. China seized the shoal, which lies west of the main Philippine island of Luzon, in 2012 and has since restricted access to Filipino fishermen there.
Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. says that Beijing has misinterpreted his comments, saying Manila will be inevitably drawn into a conflict between China and Taiwan should one erupt, should an escalation happen. And China has accused Marcos of playing with fire after the Philippine leader said this during a visit to India, that there is no way that the Philippines can stay out of it due to its proximity to the democratically governed island.
We are, I think, for propaganda purposes, misinterpreted. We do not want any kind of confrontation with anyone. We want to build a better, stronger, freer, safer Philippines. That's what we are working for. This does not build, this kind of confrontation does not build a stronger, better Philippines. All it does is continue to defend our country. So that's I'm a little bit perplexed why it would be characterized as such, as playing with fire.
Now, China claims sovereignty over nearly all the South China Sea, and this includes areas claimed by Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. A 2016 ruling by an international arbitral tribunal found that Beijing's sweeping claims had no basis under international law, a decision that China rejects.
Greece completed a major undersea power cable project connecting the island of Crete to the mainland electricity grid.
This development marks a key step in the region's shift towards cleaner energy, and the project aligns with the EU's 2030 climate targets, making Crete a critical link in Europe's energy future.
Called the Ariadne Interconnection, a high-voltage direct current project is supported by China's state grid, which is now operational and contributing to Greece's efforts to reduce carbon emissions, stretching 335 kilometers across the Aegean Sea and reaching depths of more than 1,000 meters. The cable connects Heraklion, the main city of Crete, to Athens.
Now, it is capable of allowing up to 1 gigawatt of electricity to flow between the island and the mainland. Now, this connection is designed to replace Crete's old oil-powered plants and reduce carbon emissions by over 400,000 tons each year. This, in turn, is projected to save millions of euros in fuel costs.
The 1.1 billion euro project is funded by Greece's independent power transmission operator and 20% owned by China's state grid. It is currently in trial mode and set to start full commercial operation this autumn.
Now, Japan's PM Shigeru Ishiba is under growing pressure from within his ruling Liberal Democratic Party to step down.
This comes after a crushing defeat in July's upper house election and a loss in last year's lower house poll. While Ishiba insists that he will not resign, party lawmakers have begun discussing a rare leadership race which could take place as early as September if enough lawmakers and regional leaders support it.
The timing of these discussions is critical, as September contest would give a new administration time to prepare a spending package to counter the economic impact of U.S. tariffs.
But if the vote is delayed until next year, it risks disrupting the government's budget process, which must be completed by December for the next fiscal year starting in April. Having lost control of both houses of parliament, the LDP-led coalition needs opposition support to pass legislation.
But opposition parties say they will not cooperate unless Ishiba steps down. LDP heavyweight Ken Saito warns that only a stable coalition under new leadership can deliver consistent policy.
Higher tariffs are starting to reflect in U.S. consumer prices. Economists say higher import taxes likely contributed to an increase in underlying inflation for U.S. consumers in July.
Now, Bloomberg poll predicted steady price increases across a wide range of products subject to higher import taxes. The poll showed the core consumer price index likely rose 0.3% in July from a month ago. That would be the biggest gain since the start of the year and would mean inflation remain higher than the Fed's 2% target. Higher U.S. tariffs have started to filter through to consumers in categories such as household furnishings and recreational goods. But a separate measure of core services inflation has so far shown limited impact, while many companies are exploring ways to limit the tariff pass-through to price-sensitive consumers. Many economists expect higher import duties to keep gradually feeding through.
That's the dilemma for Federal Reserve officials who've kept interest rates unchanged this year. Fed policymakers have hopes of gaining clarity on whether tariffs will lead to sustained inflation. At the same time, the labor market is showing signs of losing momentum. The real discretionary income growth of families has been pitiful, and they are running at a third of the high seen during the pandemic. And that is one reason why businesses are finding it difficult to increase prices. Bloomberg estimates that real income growth likely contracted in June after accounting for payroll adjustments.
It's August and it usually means a summer break with many at the beach or in the mountains.
But there's no break from the trade and tariff saga. Take a look at this next report for more.
The so-called hard tariff deadlines are proving to be more flexible than initially thought. Since Liberation Day, we have seen numerous deadlines for U.S. trading partners to comply with American demands. However, the consequences of non-compliance remain ambiguous. Despite the flexibility of these initially strict deadlines, it would be a mistake to assume that Trump always chickens out. Financial markets have described the pattern of Trump's tough words followed by soft actions. Instead, we are in the midst of an economic power play, which some might even call blackmail. The longer it lasts, the more everyone seems to get used to it. Trump's tariff threats have evolved into an economic power play, pushing trading partners into making billion-dollar investments in the U.S. to maintain access to the country's market. This strategy effectively imposes a double tariff: the headline tariff on exports to the U.S. and the money invested in America itself, which can no longer be spent at home. In other words, Trump is demanding that trading partners show him the money in the form of investment pledges or face astronomically high tariffs. Now, this raised the question of whether trading partners are becoming trade hostages. It's unclear whether investment aspects of trade talks will move beyond headline figures and weigh commitment. Unlike tariff, investment pledges and purchase commitments are harder to monitor. These raises questions about how the U.S. might respond if countries fall short of even with a deal the tariff issues persist. Take a look at Switzerland, for example. For Trump, tariffs are a versatile tool used well beyond trade balance concerns. One can only guess at the long-term implications of such economic power play. Disrupted supply chains, strained diplomatic ties, economic selfishness, and less efficient global trade are just a few risks. Markets struggle to incorporate longer-term structural changes into their prices. Often the reflex is to ignore until something breaks. And that's why their attention now is almost entirely on whether the U.S. economy will slow down. The tariff back and forth means they have only increased gradually since the start of the year. The true effects will take time to unfold, but they are happening. Just look at the cooling labor market. Cost of tariffs have already started to reflect in inflation data, which is a bigger worry. Business Bureau Report, WION The World is One.
And shifting focus to a major development in Indian sports, the lower house of the parliament, or Lok Sabha, they passed the National Sport Governance Bill 2025 and National Anti-Doping Amendment Bill 2025.
Sports Minister Mansukh Mandaviya called it the single biggest reform in Indian sports since independence. The Sports Governance Bill seeks to overhaul sports administration in India. It proposes a national sports board to bring stricter accountability. It is a step towards fulfilling the government's wish to bringing the Olympic Games to the country in 2036.
Now let's take a look at some important points of the bill. To get central government funding, all national sports federations must have NSB's recognition. National bodies can be de-recognized for failing to hold fair elections or engaging in corruption. The bill also proposes a national sports tribunal with civil court powers to decide disputes. Its decisions can only be challenged in the Supreme Court.
Now, administrators aged between 70 and 75 can contest elections if international bodies statutes allow. Now, the bill also brings all recognized national sports bodies under the ambit of the Right to Information Act, something that the BCCI has vehemently opposed. The government has listened to the richest sports body of the country and amended the bill to ensure that the RTI would be applicable only on bodies that rely on government funding or support.
On the other hand, the Anti-Doping Amendment Bill seeks to grant greater operational independence to the National Anti-Doping Agency. In line with World Anti-Doping Agency directives, WADA objected to government interference in the functioning of the country's anti-doping agency. The act was originally passed in 2022, but its implementation had to be put on hold due to objections raised by WADA.
It used to be that the finest restaurants would frown upon diners who whipped out their phones for photos.
But now they're using grandeur and gimmicks as much as the food to attract an online following. Extravagant decorations, moody lighting, and even smoking sushi dragons are being deployed to entice people to post pictures and videos on Instagram and TikTok. A flower wonderland with diffused natural lighting is how art in West Hollywood, a famous dining place, is attracting the snappers and influencers. Ambience and visual feasts are what it takes to stay in business. The restaurant is aiming for the enchanted garden theme. As the sun sets, the lighting creates a new mood, and the restaurant's owner, Jordan Andrew, says that social media has been central to all 6 of his restaurants and bars. He keeps coming up with new things to appeal to short attention spans, and although this type of marketing was not his first choice, he believes it is today's reality.
The business plan was very, very simple, just one sentence. Everything has to be Instagrammable. And that's been my go-to business plan for all my restaurants for the past 6 years.
Every place tells a unique story to attract clients, increase engagement, and drive business, and social media is the #1 way to get to reservations. A restaurant which wants to become a destination needs to appeal to the millions who scroll websites on their phones every day. Crow Pink is a software platform which helps brands raise their online profile across sites such as Instagram and Facebook. It claims 74% of diners choose where to eat based on what they've seen on social media that day, and 68% will check out a restaurant's social profile before booking a table.
Blair Shelter, Senior Vice President of Economic Development and Government Affairs for the Beverly Hills Chamber of Commerce, agrees it's a tough environment for restaurants, and those that survive are the ones who are prepared to experiment.
The restaurant industry is experiencing a significant amount of uncertainty due to rising prices, inflation, tariffs, and other considerations. Despite that, a number of restaurants are doing quite well.
According to Shelter, most business owners are aware of how powerful a tool a popular online presence can be. Many seek to create an online relationship by showing behind-the-scenes content, staff photos, and photos showcasing the business's personality. Well, that's all in World DNA today, but we leave you with some climate stories that are making headlines across the world. Do stay tuned. News and updates follow on the other side of this very short break.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of. A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA. Join the conversation.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Vielleicht nur als Imposant.
And welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Beyond World is One. I'm Jyotsna Kumar. Let's begin with the headlines.
Doesn't help when the President of the United States tells their largest or second largest oil buyer that we're putting a 50% tariff on you if you buy oil from Russia. That was a big blow.
Ahead of his meeting with Putin next week, Donald Trump claims U.S. tariffs on India have delivered a big blow to Moscow's economy, calling New Delhi one of Russia's largest or second largest oil buyers.
You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia. It's going to be a big thing. We're going to Russia. That's going to be a big deal.
Donald Trump seemed to confuse Russia and Alaska twice during a press conference at the White House. He said, "I'm going to Russia on Friday." This was during a briefing. Later, he repeated, and I'm quoting, "It's going to be a big thing. We're going to Russia."
They have
Donald Trump
tremendous tariffs.
Ordered a 90-day tariff truce to delay reimposition of higher levies on Chinese goods hours before a suspension between the two economies was set to expire.
We're declaring public safety emergency in the District of Columbia, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's fantastic, is taking command of the Metropolitan Police Department as of this moment.
Protests erupt after Donald Trump declares a public safety emergency for Washington, D.C., deploying military and federal law enforcement to curb violent crime in the city. Gunman opens fire outside a Target store in Texas capital, killing at least 3 people before stealing 2 cars during a getaway that ended with his arrest. Police say suspect is a man in his 30s with mental health history. Gaza hospital says at least 15 Palestinians, most of them children, killed in 2 separate Israeli strikes overnight in the city. One strike killed 12 people in a Zaytun neighborhood. U.S. State Department designates Balochistan Liberation Army and its armed wing, Majid Brigade, as foreign terrorist organization BLA claims to fight for the liberation of Balochistan from Pakistan. Japan's Nikkei index hit a record high today, lifted by easing global trade tensions and strong performance from tech exporters as investor confidence rebounds across Asia. Cristiano Ronaldo and longtime partner Georgina Rodriguez are officially engaged after 8 years of dating. The 40-year-old proposed to Rodriguez with a diamond ring. Now, international condemnation grows over Israel's latest offensive in the Gaza Strip as Netanyahu pushes to seize control over the city. In the latest strikes, at least 15 people were killed, mostly children, in two separate incidents in the Gaza city. While death toll in strikes on Al Jazeera staff tent has risen to 6. This is according to sources. Now, desperate scenes unfolded on Tuesday in Gaza City as a Israeli strike killed 12 people from an extended family in Zaytun neighborhood, including a mother and her 3 children. Now, during the funeral service, the man whose family was killed reportedly lashed out at Hamas for triggering the war. In another strike, authorities at Al-Shifa hospital said that a tent sheltering a displaced family was targeted, killing a couple and their child.
You've killed our children, Hamas. You've killed our children, Hamas.
Meanwhile, the deadly Israeli strike on Al Jazeera staff on Sunday in Gaza also killed a Palestinian freelance journalist, bringing the death toll to 6. Al Jazeera said that its staff were killed in the Israeli strike on their tent outside the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City, including prominent reporter Anas al-Sharif. On Monday, hundreds of mourners paid their last respects to slain Al Jazeera journalists Anas al-Sharif and Mohammed Kurkey, while the Israeli military claimed that Anas al-Sharif was a member of Hamas military wing and was involved in launching rockets on Israel. Al Jazeera vehemently rejected this assertion, describing him as one of Gaza's bravest journalists. The United Nations has issued a stern rebuke, with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres emphasizing that journalists are civilians and should never be targeted. According to UN, at least 242 journalists have been killed in Gaza since the war began.
I can tell you that the Secretary General condemns the killing of the 6 Palestinian journalists in an Israeli airstrike in Gaza City on August 10th. These latest killings highlight the extreme risks that journalists continue to face when covering this ongoing conflict.
Media advocacy group, the Committee to Protect Journalists, slammed an Israeli strike, saying journalists should never be targeted in war.
Journalists are civilians. They're considered civilians in a war setting, and as such, as civilians, they must never be deliberately targeted. They were in a tent housing journalists, a place where they were supposed to be safe, where they were supposed to be able to do their work, and instead they are dead.
In response to the escalating situation, a delegation from the United Nations and European Union visited the Egypt-Gaza border to assess the humanitarian situation and explore ways to improve access for aid.
It is devastating. It is utterly devastating to see the sheer volume of vital materials sitting oxygen cylinders, generators, wheelchairs, crutches. It's unbelievable.
According to reports, Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu said he will only pursue a deal with Hamas going forward that includes the release of all the remaining hostages, while U.S. President Trump backed more military pressure on Hamas, claiming it was not ready for a deal. Now, Russia continues to seize ground in Ukraine, pounding defenders into retreat and raising alarm across Kiev and European capitals. President Donald Trump prepares to host Vladimir Putin on U.S. soil, hoping for a constructive conversation. He calls out Zelensky for ruling out territorial concessions. While Europe feels left out, Trump assures calling European leaders after the high-stakes Alaska summit on Friday. Now, here's a report for more details.
Russia's offensive is relentless. Towns fall, front lines vanish, and the thunder of artillery drowns hopes of reprieve. Beyond the front lines, Ukrainian cities also bear the brunt of a relentless Russian aerial barrage. Missiles, drones, and glide bombs rain death and destruction from the skies. As Moscow gains territory, Ukraine pushes back, its long-range drone strikes now striking deep inside Russia, aiming to disrupt supply chains and production hubs. Clearly, no side is holding it back. With the war grinding on, a major diplomatic move with a promise to halt the bloodshed. The icy cold land of Alaska, which is holding one of the most anticipated meetings in recent times. Donald Trump is poised to sit down with Putin alone. It would be a litmus test for the US president. A war he promised to end in a day continues to grind on as he completes 200 days in office.
So I'm going in to speak to Vladimir Putin. And I'm going to be telling him, you got to end this war, you got to end it. And he wasn't going to mess with me. This war would have never happened. You know, we had a discussion about it one time and we never had that discussion again. Would have never happened.
Europe has been left out once again. As Trump gears up to meet President Putin, there is a sense of fear and hope in European capitals.
For Poland, for our European partners, and hopefully for all of NATO, it must be obvious that state borders cannot be changed by force, and therefore Russia's war with Ukraine must not bring benefits to the aggressor.
We cannot accept that territorial issues between Russia and America are discussed or even decided over the heads of Europeans and Ukrainians. I assume that the American government sees it the same way.
As Europe is hoping for more cooperation, US Vice President J.D. Vance bluntly declared that America is done funding Ukraine's war, urging Europe to bear far more of the burden.
America, we're done with the funding of the Ukraine war business. We want to bring about a peaceful settlement to this thing. We want to stop the killing. But Americans, I think, are sick of continuing to send their money, their tax dollars to this particular conflict. But if the Europeans want to step up and actually buy the weapons from American producers, we're okay with that, but we're not going to fund it ourselves anymore.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky watches warily, warning that any compromise with the Kremlin could only encourage further aggression. The hour of reckoning nears. Will Trump persuade Putin to halt the bloodshed, or merely hand over swaths of Ukraine and force Kyiv to secure a hollow peace? Bureau Report, WION World This One.
Now, the United States and China have extended a tariff truce for another 90 days, staving off triple-digit duties on each other's goods. U.S. President Donald Trump announced on his Truth social platform that he has signed an executive order suspending the imposition of higher tariffs until November 10th, with all other elements of the truce to remain in place. China's Commerce Ministry issued parallel pause on extra tariffs, also postponing for 90 days the addition of U.S. firms it had targeted in April to trade and investment restriction list. While the U.S. and China slapped escalating tariffs on each other's products this year, bringing them to prohibitive triple-digit levels and snarling trade, both the countries in May agreed to temporarily lower them. Their 90-day halt of steeper levies had been due to expire on Tuesday. Trump's executive order stated that U.S. continues to have discussions with China to address the lack of trade reciprocity in their economic relationship and resulting national and economic security concerns. The new order prevents U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods from shooting up to 145%, while Chinese tariff on U.S. goods were set to hit 125%, rates that would have resulted in a virtual trade embargo between the two countries. It locks in place, at least for now, a 30% tariff on Chinese exports, Chinese imports, with Chinese duties on U.S. imports at 10%. Now, protesters thronged Karachi streets as Pakistan's religious and minority rights groups call on the government to take steps to improve security of life and equality for minority communities. The rally took place ahead of the National Minorities Day, which is observed annually on 11th of August in Pakistan. Banners were seen at the rally reading, "We stand with our Hindu, Christian and Sikh siblings and give equal education to minority children." The rally also coincides with the release of a new report by Pakistan's National Commission on the Rights of the Child. The report has brought to light deep-rooted and widespread discrimination faced by minority children, especially Christians and Hindus. Among the most horrifying revelations in the NCRC's findings is the continued practice of abducting underage girls from minority communities and forcibly converting and marrying them to older Muslim men. Several instances of targeted killings have surfaced in Pakistan time and again. In January 2022, an unknown gunman killed a Christian priest and wounded another. In May of the same year, 2 Sikh businessmen were gunned down by unidentified assailants in Peshawar. According to Pakistan Bureau of Statistics report, the share of minorities in the total population of Pakistan reveals a mixed picture. The 7th Population and Housing Census in 2023 data reveals population of Hindus increased from 3.5 million in 2017 to 3.8 million in 2023, but their share in the total population went down from 1.73% to 1.61%. Whereas the population of Christians not only increased, but their share also went up in the total population. Ahmadis witnessed a decline in their real population as well as their share in the total population. Now, some viewers may find the details of the following story disturbing. In India, a chilling case of brutality has come to light. A 15-month-old, barely able to walk, was subjected to unimaginable cruelty at a daycare center in the bylanes of Noida in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh. The baby was allegedly slapped, bitten, tortured with a plastic bat, and thrown to the ground by her nanny. A disturbing CCTV footage of incident has surfaced on social media. The attendant can be seen slapping, hitting, and throwing the child on the floor as she cries in pain. In the 10-minute, 28-second viral video, the attendant holds the toddler in her arms and shuts the door of the room in the center. She then picks up a green plastic bat from the floor with her foot and hits the toddler's head multiple times. She walks around the dimly lit room, hitting the toddler's head against the wall and later throwing her on the floor multiple times. Now, the incident came to light on August 4th after the toddler's mother noticed the bite marks on the child's body and rushed her to a doctor. The mother alleges that despite her daughter's frantic cries, the daycare owner did not intervene. Noida Police has registered a case relating to assault and cruelty against the daycare owner and the attendant. The accused nanny, who is a minor, is now in police custody.
These prosthetics offer, first of all, an advanced level of technical and technological performance. Secondly, their cost, compared to similar imported products from foreign countries, is easily 50% lower, if not more.
The incident raises an alarming question: how safe are children at daycare centers as a child recovers in her parents' arms? Noida Police promised strict action, but for this family, the scars of the horrifying afternoon may never fade. Moving on, in the United States, a gunman opened fire outside a Target store in the Texas capital, killing at least 3 people. Police say the suspect has been detained. According to Austin Police Chief, the suspect stole a car after the attack and fled the scene, but he wrecked that car and stole another before being captured in South Austin, where he was taken into custody.
The police were initially called here at 2:15 p.m. for a hotshot call. Officers arrived within 4 minutes. When officers arrived, they were met with 3 people that were shot inside the parking lot of Target. The suspect fled the scene, stole a car from the scene, took that car, wrecked that car, then hijacked another car. He was then found by Austin PD in South Austin, where he was taken into custody after a tasing.
The police officers responding to a call about 2:15 p.m. local time found 3 people who had been shot in the Target parking lot. 2 people were pronounced dead at the scene, and 1 person was taken to a hospital where they were pronounced dead. Police Chief Lisa Davis further said that the suspect is a white male who appears to be in his 30s with a mental health history.
This is a very sad day for Austin. It's a very sad day for us all. And my condolences go out to the families. At this point, looking at the suspect, we have a male white suspect who appears to be 32 years of age, does have a mental health history.
The Target shooting comes just over 2 weeks after an attack at a Walmart store in Michigan. A man accused of stabbing 11 people at the Traverse City store on July 26th has been charged with terrorism and multiple counts of attempted murder. Now, a massive explosion occurred at the U.S. Steel Clairton Coke Works plant in Pennsylvania, resulting in 2 deaths and at least 10 injuries. Rescue operations are underway, with several feared trapped under the debris. Now, the blast took place at around 10:51 a.m. local time on Monday, prompting a massive emergency response. Multiple ambulances and fire trucks were dispatched to the scene. The crews could be seen battling flames as heavy smoke rose from the facility. Injured employees were transported to local hospitals for treatment, and search and rescue efforts are underway at the plant. Clairton plant operates 10 coke oven batteries and produces approximately 4.3 million tons of coke annually, making it the largest coking operation in North America. It is one of the 4 major U.S. steel plants in Pennsylvania that employ several thousand workers.
This is an active scene and still an
Josh Shapiro expressed his condolences and urged residents to follow guidance of local authorities. All right, let's look at some updates from the world.